My story about National Youth Leader Training starts when I was in the Utah National Parks Council and was the advisor for Timberline. Now you have to remember that I was a camp director for about 12, 13 years, Boy Scout camp, high adventure base, and I'd seen camping from a merit badge standpoint and from a high adventure standpoint, and I got to be involved with the NYLT program, Timberline, and what was really interesting to me was I saw these youth that would come back year after year after year on NYLT staff, and they're not paid. They don't necessarily have to give up a whole summer like a staff member, but they're absolutely committed to the program of National Youth Leader Training. And then they graduate, and then they go on a mission, and then they go to college, and they get married, and guess what? They're bringing their sons up to NYLT. It becomes a family tradition, and then dad becomes a scoutmaster. And it just keeps perpetuating itself and becomes a legacy that can be passed on from generation to generation. And I never met a more dedicated set of volunteers, both youth and leaders, that were convinced that the program of National Youth Leader Training, they were convinced that it was the best program that had ever been invented. So I ended up moving to the Grand Teton Council, and they put me in charge of National Youth Leader Training over the Cedar Badge program there. And this last summer was my first experience of working with a Cedar Badge program. And Cedar Badge is a little bit different than Timberline in that it's a full family of scouting from Boy Scouts to venturing. So the Boy Scouts will arrive, the Varsity Scouts will arrive. The Boy Scouts and Varsity Scouts do NYLT, and then the venturers go out and they do a Kodiak experience or high adventure. They plan their own budget, they plan their own activities, and they go have fun. And then they come back at the end of the day, or the end of the week, and they basically share their experience with everybody else. And there's this big graduation on Saturday. So I was at Island Park last summer. This was August, and it had been raining all week. Terribly wet week, terribly cold. And the parents were all coming up on Saturday, and the parents were going to be, and the parents come up to watch their kids, the youth participants, graduate from the Cedar Badge program. And I'm concerned because I'm watching the weathercast, and I'm looking on my phone, and I'm going, we're going to get rained out. I'm seeing the squalls coming from over the mountains and from the west, and we're going to have to move this indoors. And the volunteers look at me and they said, we have never canceled, ever, a graduation. No matter what happens, the sun always comes out, the wind always stops, angels intervene, and graduation happens. And I'm looking at my app and I'm saying, science is telling me otherwise. But they insisted on having graduation, so they moved everybody into the they went out to the amphitheater, and the parents were showing up, and they were sitting there, and the rain just started coming down, and it just started coming harder and harder and harder. And the way that graduation works is all of the staff and participants, they all go back into the trees, and at a certain cue, they all come running out with their flags and their emblems, screaming at the top of their lungs. And I'm thinking to myself, there's no way these kids are going to be that enthusiastic with all this rain, because it's now coming in sheets sideways. And the cue comes, and they come running in, and with water dripping off their nose, they're yelling from the top of their lungs, Cedar Badge, Cedar Badge, Cedar Badge. And they go around the circle, and the way that it works is that they all yell their own programs, and they all yell their own patrols, and they're all excited about their own patrol. And then at a certain cue, they all yell their program name, Boy Scouts, Varsity Scouts, Venturing, and then at the very, very end, they all yell Cedar Badge together. So it's kind of this coming into a unity sort of a circumstance. And here's all these parents, and probably half of them are in a hypothermic state at this point. Nobody has decided to stop the program, and the kids are just jumping up and down, and they're just on fire, and you can tell that they're excited about the program. And I've never seen, in my career, 16 and 17-year-old kids, boys and girls, sing the scout songs, the stupid scout songs that the 12-year-olds sing, that all of the older kids go, well, that's just child stuff. We don't want to sing those songs. And those kids are there, and they're jumping up and down going, you can't ride in my little red wagon, and they're just singing it as loud as they can. And everybody's like, what do these kids drink all week? And so all of a sudden here's these parents that are huddled, and they're shaking, and they're hypothermic, and all of a sudden you start to see smiles start cornering around the side of their mouths, because they realize that even in really bad weather, something just changed their child's life forever. And they can tell.